Namaste, welcome to our Flow and Restore yoga practice. My name is Michelle Chua, and for today you'll want to have 2 blocks, a strap, a bolster, and a blanket if you have anything like that. You can substitute with if you're missing any of these items. Let's start in a comfortable seated position. You may find it beneficial to sit up on one of your props to help lengthen the spine more comfortably upright, and to relax the hips. Take a moment to set aside anything that might pull your attention away from your practice so that you can fully be present in this hour. So we have been taking a revisit through the 8 limbs of yoga according to the sage Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. And today we are highlighting the 8th limb of yoga called Samadhi. I want to share excerpts from writings by a meditation teacher and filmmaker of Awaken the World, whose name is Dan Schmidt. Samadhi is not about attaining or adding anything to yourself. To realize Samadhi is to learn to die before you die. Life and death are like yin and yang, an inseparable continuum, endlessly unfolding with no beginning and no end. When we push away death, we also push away life. When you experience the truth directly of who you are, there is no longer fear of life or death. We are told who we are by our society and our culture. And at the same time, we are slaves to the deeper unconscious biological craving and aversion that governs our choices. The ego construct is nothing more than the impulse to repeat. It is simply the path that energy once took and the tendency for the energy to take that path again, whether it is positive or negative for the organism. There are endless levels of memory or mind, spirals within spirals. When your consciousness identifies with this mind or ego construct, it ties you to social conditioning, which you could call the matrix. Human consciousness is a continuum. On one extreme, humans are identified with a material self. On the other extreme is samadhi, the cessation of self. Every step we take on the continuum towards samadhi brings less suffering. Less suffering does not mean life is free of pain. Samadhi is beyond the duality of pain and pleasure. What it means is that there is less mind, less self creating resistance to whatever unfolds. And that resistance is what creates suffering. Realizing samadhi, even once, allows you to see what is at the other end of this continuum, to see that there is something other than the material world and self-interest. When there is an actual cessation of the self structure in samadhi, there is no egoic thought, no self, no duality, yet there is still the I am, anatta, or no self. In that emptiness is the dawn of prajna, or wisdom, the understanding that the immanent self is far beyond the play of duality, beyond the entire continuum. And with that being said, to reinforce, samadhi is not something we can practice or even strive to attain. Elusively, the more we try to grasp for samadhi, the more it is ungraspable. It is through our continuous living of our other 7 limbs of yoga, integrating it into our daily lives consistently, wholeheartedly, that we open ourselves up and set conditions to welcome samadhi. So let's begin our practice of doing that here in our asana. Take a moment to maybe close the eyes and begin to scan mentally your own physical body. Moving away from dualities of labeling what you are experiencing in your body as positive or negative. Just become aware of the sensations happening. Feel the sensations of the breath without changing how you're breathing. The way you're breathing at any given moment can be a great indicator of how your energy feels. So notice what your energy feels like right now. Notice how your heart mind feels. Sensing your mental state. Sensing any emotions moving or lingering. Now let's begin to deepen the breath. Inhaling through your nose. Exhaling to your mouth. Inhaling a little slower. Exhaling a little slower. Continue a few more exhales through the mouth, inviting the breath to expand throughout the four walls of your rib cage, front, back, left and right. Feel the breath down at the pit of your belly and all the way to the top of your chest at your collarbones and upper back. Taking your time to let it all go, sensing the emptiness at the bottom of the breath. And you might join your hands in prayer at your heart center as we begin a practice of gratitude, reflecting on anything right now that is supporting your peace and well-being. Then start to set your intention or sankalpa for today's practice. What are you choosing to cultivate by showing up here today? So we acknowledge that our practice is not only to benefit us, but the collective, all of life around us. I invite you to choose someone you'd like to dedicate today's practice to. And together, let's join our voices in support of each other, creating resonance by chanting Om 3 times. Let in a deep breath. to guide us through movements while balancing our energy and focusing our minds. Let's begin practicing Ujjayi Pranayama, or victorious breath. It's done by closing your lips and gently narrowing the back of your throat. As you breathe just through the nose, lengthen your in-breath as slowly as your out-breath, creating a soft and smooth whispering sound. Listen to a few cycles of that breathing here. Taking your time to reach the very top and bottom of each breath, setting a slow rhythm that will eventually move our bodies to mindfully. Now see if you can keep that gently audible rhythm going. And let's begin to just rest the hands in the lap and start to circle the spine at the pelvis. Beginning with Sufi rolls. As you breathe in, circle your torso to one side and lean forward. Exhale to the other side and lean back. Try a few more times in this direction. And on your own, switch direction. Maybe switch directions a couple more times. Feel your weight shift throughout the bottom of your pelvis as you're loosening up your spine and warming up the area of your hips, lower back, pelvis. Now let's bring the movements into flexion and extension by coming down onto tabletop, hands and knees, for a few cycles of cat-cow or Betalasana. So stack your shoulders on top of your wrists, spreading the fingers wide at the top of your mat, and step your knees a couple of inches behind your hips. As you breathe in, glide your chest forward and roll your shoulders back and down, cow pose. As you breathe out, contract your abdomen, dropping your head to round the back, cat pose. Again, inhale, draw your heart forward, roll the shoulders behind you, look up. Exhale, lift the navel towards your spine, tucking the tailbone and dropping your head. Try maybe 3 or so more rounds, tuning into the sound of your breath. Now at the end of your next exhalation, tuck your toes with your feet hips width apart and lift your hips high, pull your hips back, entering downward facing dog. Spend the first few breaths there, moving your body any way it needs to loosen up, like pedaling your feet, swiveling the hips side to side, or gently shaking and nodding your head. Stay aware of your breathing. As you press the ground away with fingers flat and spread, lift the shoulders high and back, really relaxing the neck. Begin to find stillness in Adho Mukha Svanasana, steadying your gaze or drishti on one spot towards your feet. Listen to the end of the next exhalation before you walk or lightly jump to the top of your mat into a forward fold, Uttanasana. Step the feet apart, hips distance or wider and parallel to each other. Plant your fingertips on your shins, 2 blocks or the floor. And as you breathe in, lengthen your spine forward like you're creating a tabletop, lifting the chest. Exhale, hinge forward, dropping your head, forward folds. Press through the feet, inhale, sweep your arms forward and rise all the way to stand, rolling the shoulders behind you as you gaze up in Urdhva Hastasana. Exhale, gather your palms in prayer at your heart center in mountain pose. Connect to your intention you're cultivating in this practice. And moving to the breath, let's begin to offer gratitude to the sun, great source of energy, through sun salutation, C. Inhale, sweep your arms forward, tilt your heart towards the sun. Exhale, bow forward from the hips. Place your fingertips on the ground. Inhale, step the left knee behind you to a kneeling lunge, gaze up. Holding your breath, step into plank pose, top of a push-up. As you exhale, first lower your knees, then your chest, then your chin in Ashtangasana. Inhale, slither forward onto the belly, soften the shoulders back to Cobra, Bhujangasana. Exhale, press up, lifting the hips back to Adho Mukha Svanasana. Inhale, step the left foot beside your left thumb. Lower your right knee and gaze up, Anjaneyasana. Exhale, step the right foot forward and fold. Root down to your feet, inhale, rise. Urdhva Hastasana, soften the shoulders back and down. Exhale, join your palms in prayer in Padasana. Second side, inhale, Urdhva Hastasana, gaze up. Exhale, fold to Uttanasana. Plant the fingertips down, inhale, step right knee back, Anjaneyasana, look up. Hold your breath as you step to plank. Exhale, lower knees, chest, then chin. Inhale, slide forward to Cobra. Exhale, lift the hips back to downward dog. Inhale, step right foot beside right thumb, left knee down, look up. Exhale, step left foot forward and fold. Inhale, rise, lifting your heart towards the sun. Exhale, marry your palms in prayer. Let's take a salutation A, Surya Namaskar A. Inhale, sweep the arms overhead, gaze up. Exhale, forward fold. Press your shins, blocks or the floor. Inhale, lengthen halfway up to Ardha Uttanasana. Step to plank, knees down or legs straight. And as you breathe out, either lower knees, chest, shin, or glide forward. Graze your elbows by your ribs through Chaturanga Dandasana. Then inhale to Cobra or upward facing dog, drawing your shoulders back. Exhale to downward facing dog. Pause here for 2 deep breaths, steadying your gaze. Now, from here, inhale, raise your right leg behind you. And as you exhale, bend the knee and rotate the thigh externally. Turn it out at the hip. Stay here and inhale, draw your left outer hip back. And as you exhale, bend the right knee towards your nose, activating your abdomen. And quietly step the right foot directly between your hands. Spin the left heel down for Warrior Two. Align right heel to arch of left foot and inhale, windmill the arms into Virabhadrasana 2. Let's pause here. Let your eyes soften onto the space just in front of your right fingertips. Sense that you're bending your right knee directly above your right heel while firming the outer edge of your left foot into the ground. Wrap your right outer hip beneath you to splay the right knee open towards your right pinky toe while firming the top of your left thigh bone back. Now relax the shoulders and tune into 2 more deep breaths. Virabhadrasana 2. Flip the right palm to face up and inhale to Peaceful Warrior, side bend towards your rear wall. Exhale your hands to plank pose and continue to lower into a vinyasa or cat-cow. Follow your pace of breath. Downward facing dog. Pause for 1 slow breath. Then inhale, raise your left leg behind you. Exhale, bend the knee and turn out your left thigh at the hip. Staying there, inhale, tack the right hip back. Then exhale, round into plank, bending left knee towards your nose, and quietly step the foot between your hands. Spin the right heel down, align left heel to arch of right foot, and inhale, cartwheel the arms into warrior two. Right away, steady your gaze and relax your eyes. Sense the flow of your breath. Feel the left knee bend just above the heel as the outer edge of your right foot firms the ground. Rotate the left outer hip beneath you as you firm the top of the right thigh bone back. Relax the shoulders. Listen to 2 more deep breaths. Flip the left palm to face up and inhale to peaceful warrior, side bending towards your rear wall. Ride your exhalation down from plank into your vinyasa or cat-cow. Downward facing dog, pause for 2 deep breaths. Notice how your body feels. When you've emptied the second breath, walk or float to the front of your mat. Forward fold. Inhale, half forward fold. Exhale, fold. Inhale, sweep the arms forward to rise. Exhale, join your palms at your heart center. Now with your feet touching, standing tall in mountain pose, steady your gaze on one spot ahead of you. Let's prepare to balance in tree pose. Shift your weight onto your left foot, engage the abdomen, and keep the breath balanced and calm. Bend your right knee in front of you and flex the foot. Draw your right sitting bone down towards your inner left heel so as to balance the height of your left and right hips. Then turn out your right thigh at the hip and hug the right foot against your inner left ankle with toes on the ground, or calf, or above the knee, inner thigh. If you're feeling really wobbly where you've landed, go a step back. You can keep the toes on the ground until you feel balanced, and then maybe add the challenge of bringing the foot higher, or not. If you feel pretty stable, you might add the challenge of raising the arms overhead, maybe gazing up or closing the eyes. Remember that the practice of yoga is not necessarily just the pose itself. It's how you're practicing. What's going on mentally? What is your motivation for the variation of the pose you're taking? How are you cultivating self-awareness while you're here? Is your mind present with a breath? One more deep breath in Vrikshasana, tree pose. Then gently step the right foot down to meet the left. Bring the hands in prayer at your heart. Mountain pose, Tadasana. Just pause, observe how you feel internally. Keeping the breath smooth and balanced, steady your gaze, and shift your weight onto your right foot. Bend the left knee in front of you and flex the foot. Pause there, and work on balancing the 2 hips before you go any further. When that's happened, turn out the left thigh at the hip, and hug the sole of the foot against your inner ankle so the toes are on the ground. Feel that stability. If that feels stable, then maybe slide the foot to your inner calf. Maybe slide the foot to your inner thigh. Take it one step at a time. Remember, the practice is not how advanced your physical yoga pose looks. It's what's happening internally. Are we motivated by ego? Are we motivated by authenticity? Come back to the breath. One more deep breath in Vrikshasana. And bring it back down to Tadasana. mountain pose. Pause here. Notice anything there is to notice. Now let's step the feet wide apart. You might face the wide width of your mat and parallel your feet for a wide-legged forward fold with the option of moving to headstand if that is part of your practice. Now you might know if you need to place 2 blocks in front of you so that you can place your hands on them if the ground is too low. So go ahead and use any props that you might find useful. But let's start by clasping the hands behind our backs. If you're able to hug the heels of your palms together like this, try that so we can open up the fronts of the shoulders. With parallel feet, inhale, roll the shoulders behind you and look up. As you exhale, shift your weight as far forward as you can balance while hinging from the hips, create the feeling of a flat back rather than rounding. You can bend your knees any amount to support this. Letting your head fall, relax the neck. And as you're stretching the arms further forward to open the fronts of your shoulders, bend your elbows slightly to lift the shoulders and create more space in your neck. Let's tune into just 2 or 3 more breaths in this variation of wide-legged forward fold. Prasarita Padottanasana. Now go ahead and lower your fingertips. Crawl the hands forward so your spine is about parallel to the ground. Place one hand on the ground or a block just beneath the chest. Keep the pelvis still and raise the opposite arm straight up. Start to twist in that direction. So notice where you're twisting from. Try to twist across your waistline without turning the pelvis. Draw the shoulder blades down your back ribs and keep lengthening your spine and top of your head forward. About 3 more breaths here. Then lower the top hand to switch sides. Raising the other arm, keep the pelvis still and lengthen the spine forward. Continue to twist in the other direction. Then lower both hands and continue to fold in. Whether you choose to move towards headstand, tripod headstand is available here, or clasping your big toes with your peace fingers and lifting the shoulders as you fold in further. Let's stay for another 5 or so deep breaths in your form of inversion. Remember, if you are in headstand, to use your hands to press the ground away and continue to create space in your neck by lifting the shoulders up. Sealing in the bottom of your front ribs as you stretch the tailbone up towards your inner heels, feet together, pointed or flexed. Take your time coming down. When both feet are on the ground, take your time rising halfway up. Pause for a few breaths there. And then start to walk your hands to the front of your mat, stepping back to downward facing dog as we transition into the restore or yin portion of our flow and restore practice. Let's make our way into single pigeon pose. And if you'd opt to take the version where you're lying on your back, which can be called thread the needle, you can start with the right ankle crossed over the left thigh. Make sure you're flexing the right foot. Otherwise, start from downward dog and turn out your right thigh at the hip. Cross your right shin in front of your pelvis and lower to sit with left leg straight behind you, toes tucked. With your hands framing your pelvis, draw your right outer hip back and rotate your left outer hip forward until both of your hips are equally facing the front edge of your mat. Now, it might help to place a folded blanket under your right glute if there is a gap between the glute and the floor. And relax your back toes. If your right shin is parallel to the front edge of your mat, help to stabilize your right knee by keeping the right foot flexed in this pose. And as you breathe in, lift your chest and stretch the front of your torso. Take your time bowing forward. You could rest your forehead on a block or stacked blocks. Or there's an option to come into the other thread the needle where you're twisting here. And if you are coming into that twist, place your right fingertips towards the upper right corner of your mat, flaring the right elbow up, and thread the left arm under your right bent elbow, lowering the left side of your head to the ground or a prop like your block. Okay, I'm going to watch the clock for 2 more minutes. Let your body surrender into the shape you've now placed it in, so that you're not trying to hold yourself up anymore in this pose. And let your attention rest on your breathing. Relaxing a little deeper with each exhalation. Jaw relaxing, eyes soft. Letting the breath cultivate space where you might feel tension in the body. At the end of the next exhalation, down, slowly lift the head. Begin to make your way back onto downward facing dog. Now, if you're on your back, stay on your back. And instead of downward dog, you can come into happy baby pose or bend the knees and circle your thighs at your hips. If you're in downward dog, you might raise the right leg and give it some movement at the hip, promoting blood flow into that region. So in our live community today, we had a request to help release tension in the lower back. As we know, our body parts are all related to each other, and as we work with opening the hips, that will definitely affect the lower spine. All right, try to take the same version of the pose you did on the first side onto the second. So starting from downward dog, if you're coming into traditional single pigeon, turn out the left thigh and cross the left shin in front of your pelvis. Lower to sit with the right leg straight behind you and toes tucked. Place your hands alongside your hips and draw your left hip back. Rotate your right outer hip forward, then release the back toes. If your left shin is parallel to the front edge of your mat, make sure you're flexing the left foot during this pose. Then breathe in to lift your chest. Take your time folding forward, maybe rearranging the configuration of your props if there's something different happening on the side of the hips. Make sure you're listening to that and accommodating. If it's available and you did so on the first side, enter the spinal twist by placing the left fingertips towards the upper left corner of your mat, bending the left elbow up, and threading the right arm underneath your left bent elbow, lowering the right side of your head on the ground or a prop. Settle into stillness where you can relax the body and ungrip. And then come back to the breathing. We're here for 2 more minutes. Can you still hear your breath? At the end of the next exhalation, very carefully start to lower onto your back. Excuse me, not your back. Back to downward facing dog if you're in traditional single pigeon. Or if you're on your back, you can take another happy baby or variation of movement there. If you are in downward dog, you might lift the left leg and give it some movement at your hip. Let's eventually meet sitting down with the legs in front of you. And as you're there, notice if it's helpful to elevate your sitting bones on a folded blanket so that you can sit tall and relaxed. Let's prepare for a seated spinal twist. Start by extending your left leg forward and bending your right knee. Step your right foot on the ground, either in front of your right hip or crossed outside of your left knee, in which you might also bend the left knee. Now choose the variation of the setup in which your 2 sitting bones are equally grounded and your spine is tall. Shoulders are relaxed. Backstroke your right hand to the floor behind your pelvis. Raise your left arm. And every part of your body touching the ground or surface below, press into that surface and breathe in as you lengthen up through the top of your head. Keep the shoulders relaxed, pelvis still, and exhale, begin twisting to your right, breath by breath. Now lower your left arm to hold your right leg, or use the leverage of pressing the elbow outside the thigh if you can do that while the shoulders are still relaxed. Let's continue to twist for about 7 or so more breaths. You might stretch the neck by gazing over one shoulder for a few breaths, and then gazing over the opposite shoulder for a few breaths. Now on your next exhalation, keep the cross of your legs and unwind your spine. Let's set up for cow face pose, Gomukhasana. Now the traditional cow face pose, both knees are bent and you hug the thighs as close together as you can, where you might be able to stack the knees. If that throws your pelvis off balance, another option is to straighten the bottom leg and flex that foot. So choose the setup that is most appropriate for you. And then from here, Let's bring the arms into cow face pose. So we're going to raise the left arm if the right leg is on top of the left. And you might find it useful to dangle a strap from your left hand behind your back. With your right hand, rotate your left tricep or outer upper arm forward and press the left shoulder bone down as you bring the elbow behind your head. Reach the right hand behind you underneath to catch the bottom end of the strap. Then walk your hands as close together as you can. If you're able to clasp your hands, then you don't need a strap. Try to point your left elbow up towards the sky rather than to the left. Press down through your pelvis. Lengthen up through the chest and back of your skull, breathing in. Stay here or start to fold from the hips for several breaths. Notice what sensations are arising for you. Where is your body calling your attention the most? You might concentrate on breathing into those areas. As you root down through your sitting bones, lead from your chest as you breathe in to rise. Release your arms, stretch the legs in front of you, and just allow a few breaths here to unwind. If you can, try to set up the same way in your spinal twist as you did on the first side. So bend the left knee and step the left foot on the ground, either in front of your left hip or crossed outside of your right knee, in which you might also bend your right knee. Place the left hand on the ground behind your pelvis. Raise the right arm. Press into the surface below your body as you breathe in to rise taller through the spine. Then exhale, begin to twist to the left and lower your right arm to hold your left leg or hook the elbow outside the thigh. Keep rooting down to rise with each inhalation and continue to twist at your waistline with each exhalation. Again, to stretch the neck, you might look over one shoulder for a few breaths and then look over the opposite shoulder a few breaths. On your next exhalation, unwind your spine and let's hug the thighs closer together, maybe splaying the feet wider apart or straightening the bottom leg if that works better for balancing your pelvis. Gomukhasana, cow face pose. Grab a strap if you might need it and dangle it from your right hand as you raise your right arm. Use your left hand to rotate your right tricep forward, plug the shoulder bone down and bring the elbow behind your head. Reach the left hand below, behind you, catch the bottom end of the strap. Walk your hands as close together as you can. So the right elbow is pointing upwards rather than to the right. If you can clasp the hands, let go of the strap. And then root down to your pelvis, lift up through the back of the skull, soften the shoulders down and open the throat. Stay here, or with each exhalation, explore folding forward, keeping a slight lift at your chest. One last breath here. Root down through the hips, lead from the chest, breathe in to rise. Release your arms, stretch the legs forward, maybe circle out the shoulders and feet. Before we make our way onto our backs, let's practice another breathing technique or pranayama to help cool off on this hot summer day. It's called Sitali or Sitkari, depending on the version of this breathing that you take. Find a comfortable way to sit in which you can breathe comfortably and fully. You may like to elevate your pelvis on a prop. And this cooling breath involves making a shape with your mouth. So first, check if your tongue will fold like a taco, where you fold the left and right edges of the tongue upwards like this. Now, if that doesn't happen, some tongues just don't do that, you can instead close your teeth together and open the lips like this, like you're smiling. All right, so choose either the taco tongue or the closed teeth. And we'll inhale slowly through the mouth to whatever your capacity is. Then you'll hold the breath, close the lips, and touch the tongue tip towards the roof of the mouth. Holding the breath just gently, not too long, not strenuously. And then when you're done, you're ready to let go, exhale through the nose. So when you're inhaling through the mouth, you're drawing in a cooling air, and then you're exhaling heat through the nose. So let's try 3 cycles together and then continue on your own for a little bit. So you might close the eyes, you might bring the hands in a mudra, such as thumb and index fingers touching, palms face down in your lap to invite grounding energy, palms face up for uplifting energy. And then prepare to begin by just inhaling fully through the nose. Open the mouth, let it go. Then create your taco tongue or close the teeth. Inhale through the mouth slowly. Hold the breath, close the lips, touch the tip of the tongue to the roof of the mouth. When you're ready to exhale, close the mouth and exhale through the nose slowly. Again, taco tongue or closed teeth, inhale mouth. Close the mouth, hold the breath, touch the tip of the tongue to the roof. When you're ready to let it out, exhale through the nose gently. Last one together. Inhale through mouth. Close mouth, hold the breath and relax. Tip of the tongue to the roof. Keep the mouth closed. Exhale through nose. Try maybe 3 or more cycles on your own. When you're ready to let go of that pranayama, breathe naturally and observe how you feel. Now I'll invite you into one more restorative posture, which you might choose to stay in for Shavasana, and that's supported fish pose. Grab a couple of blocks or 2 blocks and a bolster. And start with placing 1 block at the tallest height at the rearmost end of your mat, and the second block at the medium or second level height, either crossing the width of the mat or tracing the length midline of the mat, where the blocks are closer together than the latter. And then if you want more support, less back bending, you can create a recliner by placing your bolster on top like this. You'll keep the pelvis on the floor. Legs can be stretched out like Shavasana. If you want some lower back support, you can roll up a blanket and place that rolled blanket under the backs of the knees. And then lie back onto your props. If you're not using a bolster, find the area that's right underneath the bottom tips of your shoulder blades to meet the first edge of the closest block. Then you might turn the palms to face up, down by your thighs, let the shoulders drop down away from the neck, and then close your eyes. Continue to rest your awareness on your breathing as you breathe naturally, allowing your body to let go of effort with each breath out. I'll watch the clock here for 2 minutes and let you know when that time is up, in which you can then decide to stay longer for Shavasana or to take a different position. All right, so we're nearing the end of 2 minutes. Decide to stay where you are if you're completely comfortable for Shavasana, or gradually and gently lower your body into your corpse pose. And we'll rest there for a few more minutes before we sit in meditation. resting where you are. Notice how your body feels now. As you keep the eyes closed, begin to move your body in the way it wants to start waking up. Be gentle with yourself as you ease into simple stretches. Gradually turn over onto your right side, resting your head for a few moments. And notice the quality of your natural breathing. Feeling your energy. Notice if anything has shifted through your practice. Then take your time rising up. Please find a comfortable way to sit for 5 minutes in meditation. You may like to place your hands in a mudra, such as one of the two earlier, or stack the right palm face up on top of the left palm face up on the center of your lap, letting your thumbs gently touch. This is a more neutral position that promotes focus. You might close the eyes, sitting tall and relaxed, observing the breath as it naturally comes and goes. Feel the breath in the background as you become more aware of what's happening in thoughts, sensations, emotions, or external stimuli like sounds. Opening your awareness to a greater scope, beyond labeling what you observe as good or bad, or positive or negative. Letting go of that duality mindset. Cultivate open awareness. If you start to feel the confinement of being hooked by a thought, following another into a storyline, reclaim your freedom by letting go. Come back to sensing the breath and cultivating open awareness. Notice how your mind and heart feel. Bringing the hands in prayer at the heart center. Gratitude to those who've come before us, paving the path for all that we live and enjoy today, including these ancient practices like yoga. Revisit your intention that you'll continue to cultivate. And remember to whom you dedicated today's practice. Together, let's close as we chant Om 3 times. Sense the resonance we've co-created here, that you're sending out through your voice, out into the world, and integrating into the cells of your being. Let in a deep breath. Bowing in, honoring the light within. The light in me honors the light in you. Namaste.